So we'll run through each club at a decent pace. Like I said, if you guys are after something a bit more in depth, then there's certainly a lot of stuff online, but more directly, we can answer your questions on our mailbag. So keep it open.
You ready to go?
Absolutely.
All right, cool. All right, 1 minute, every club, trade period, let's go. So starting with Adelaide and time.
All right. Well, yeah, the Crows are an interesting one. They've been linked to a lot of players, and they'll have a few players on the way out. It seems Chris Burgess is one that's coming in from Gold Coast. So Fothergill, round Mitchell medal winner, more forward support, and his incoming will likely mean that Elliot Himmelberg gets a move to GWS. Tom Duday's signalled he wants to go to Brisbane, so that leaves up a bit of a hole in their back line. So what that means for someone like James Borlase is another factor for the Crows. He's still unsigned and likely to wait until the end of the trade period. Shane McAdams, another one that's going to be on the way out. So he's going to be heading to Melbourne. Now, he was probably one that was named in potential trades for Clayton Oliver. It doesn't look like Clary will be going anywhere at the moment this off-season. So you can put a line through that one. But Shane McAdam will be heading to Melbourne at some point over the coming weeks. And then, they'll link to Chol, but Burgess will be that guy who fills in that forward role. And as mentioned, he'll allow someone like Elliot Himmelberg to move to GWS. Currently pick 9's where they'll enter, so they're in a good hand at the moment, the Crows.
Yep, nice. That's a minute. All right. And I do just want to point out that I did say in the Zero Hanger Instagram comments that I will eat this microphone live on air on this podcast.
Yeah, it's
Clayton Oliver
it's
goes.
the only reason I'm hoping Clary leaves, but we'll see. All right.
I regret that so bad. Okay, all right, Brisbane. Ready?
So as mentioned just before, Tom Duday signalled his intentions via free agency to get to Brisbane, so he'll head up there, and it sounds like a pretty decent deal of 5-6 years, close to $3 million overall. Another big get for Brisbane is in-house, with Devon Robinson re-signing for a further 2 years. Had obviously a strong interest from West Coast, so he'll be staying on for the next few seasons and fighting for his spot. They'll get guys like Will Ashcroft back midway through next year, so that'll be a really interesting start to his season next year. AFL.com, I think, have reported Tom Fullerton's hoping to get to Melbourne. That's a big get for Melbourne. It's not a big loss for the Lions. I think he was a good depth player, very good VFL player. But when they've got Danaher, Hipwood, Gunston, and a few others kind of pressing for that forward and ruck options as well, I think that's one that'll work out for both parties. It's not going to cost a lot. Then they can't really expect to get much back. Won't have a first round pick. Could look to trade back into the first round. But obviously giving up a few picks for Josh Dunkley last year kind of cost them.
Time. Nice. All right. Carlton?
The Blues could be one of the busier ones. Zach Fisher's intentions to get to North Melbourne. Paddy Dow potentially looking to get to St Kilda. So they're two depth midfield options, or Zach Fisher can kind of play across all three lines from what we saw this year. So, it'd be interesting to see what they get for those two in return. Dow could certainly walk as a delisted free agent, if Carlton don't have an offer on the table or if he doesn't accept one, gets delisted and then picked up maybe by the preseason draft by the Saints, or could be as a delisted free agency signing, so we want to play out there. Elijah Hollands looks likely to get to the Blues, it sounds like. It might not cost Carlton all that much. One thing the Blues have to keep in consideration is future picks for next year. The two Camporelli boys, Ben certainly could be a high-end pick for them, and Liam certainly another one that they'll have in their draft plan. So they'll be keeping in mind those kind of selections for the coming years. And then I guess, at the draft, pick 16 is where they'll start. So it's a good hand to have with the likes of Elijah Hollands coming in as well.
Yep. That's your time. You just went over a little bit there. So
that's all right.
You got to speed it up, Mitchie.
I'll cut back off.
All right. Collingwood.
So it's interesting. I don't really know who they'll be bringing in. Obviously couldn't quite get Todd Goldstein despite some strong interest from them. It sounded like Tom Duday picked Brisbane over them. Joel Hamling looks likely to go to Sydney. So a key defender looks like something that they are pressing for, maybe in some ruck support as well. So it's going to be interesting if they still stay in that market and keep looking around. There's probably not a lot more on offer, given it is a very busy market for key defenders this offseason, but a lot of them have either been sewn up with new deals or are likely already, delegated who they want to play for next. So from rucks and key defenders, two of the busiest markets, and it looks like the Pies might have missed out on both. And another one, just Trey Rusco, is kind of signalled he's not at the club next year, likely delisted. Nothing from the club yet. Doesn't have a deal for next year. Could have some interest from WA clubs, given that's his home state. But it's could be a pretty stagnant trade period for the Pies.
Bang on a minute. And Essendon.
Yeah, probably the busiest club, it looks like. So Ben Mackay will come via free agency. And as you mentioned, it could happen as early as today on Friday. Jake Gresham's another one that could work through free agency. And if that does, there could be a following deal with St Kilda that sees Dylan Shield head to the Saints. And St Kilda, maybe send a pick of decent value to the Bombers. Todd Goldstein, third free agent that could land at Essendon. So they're going to have a busy opening week. And that certainly could spill into the trade period as well, with someone like Xavier Dersma reportedly undergoing a medical at Tullamarine. So he's another one. They'll lose Brandon Zerk-Thatcher to Port Adelaide via trade. So they'll be hoping to get something decent out of that. And that could be in a deal with Xavier Dersma included. And then another one is Massimo D'Ambrosio heading to Hawthorn, or hoping to head to Hawthorn. So another deal that'll play out there. You're looking at maybe a future third, nothing too high. But I think the Bombers rate him quite highly, and they'll be hoping to get something that they can use this year or next year for him.
Yep. Couple of seconds short for Essendon.
Yeah, made it up.
Kings of trade period. All right. And what's going on at Freo?
Yeah, so as we know, Liam Henry hoping to get a move to St Kilda. So it's going to be really interesting how that one plays out, just given how both clubs might value him. I don't think St Kilda will be wanting to overpay for him too much. He had a great year, though. And Fremantle were really disappointed with his breakout season coming in the same year. Requests to move away from the club. They used a top 10 pick on him and was a member of their NGA. So they'd be hoping for a first round pick in return. St Kilda, I think, come in at pick 13 or pick 12, but it'll push back a few spots. Could be enough that the Saints are really hoping to stay near the first round of the draft. Now, a few other things for the Dockers. They've put a table to Joel Hamling. Sounds like he'll likely move, but there's certainly an option there for him to stay at Cockburn. And then, do they look at someone like Jeremy Sharp over the offseason? Had interest last year, still unsigned at Gold Coast. And it sounds like Sean Darcy, they're working on a deal. They're confident he'll re-sign, but
all right, and Geelong.
Yeah, so the Cats, one thing we'll know is South Adelaide is likely going to be moving to Port Adelaide. They'll be standing pretty firm on just how much they can get back for him. First round pick is probably what they're after. Port won't be giving that up. Not really that they have one for this year at least. So maybe a pick in the 20s, early 30s, but that's kind of what the Cats turned down last year for him, and his value's probably only gone up from there. So that's going to be interesting to see how a deal gets done between those two clubs and if Geelong starts sourcing interest from maybe other sides. But he's supposedly lodged a request to get over to South Australia, so all eyes on that one. The Clayton Oliver stuff, Geelong probably one of the better suited clubs, but I don't think Claret will be going anywhere, let alone Geelong. And Tim O'Brien's name was raised. I think Sam Edmonds said that the Cats might be looking at him as a potential delisted free agent. He was already cut by the Bulldogs this off-season. If they lose Radigal, they just want maybe an extra depth option. O'Brien has experience, can play at either end, so that'll be kind of one to watch over the coming weeks.
Nice. All right. Gold Coast.
Busy, but a lot of it is probably in regard to players leaving. So Marby Ochel wants to go to Hawthorn. Chris Burgess wants to go to Adelaide. Elijah Holland's likely to end up at Carlton. So there's a few right there that likely want to be on the way out. And then for the Suns as well, a lot of their business will surround pick 4. So they'll be palming that off to a club for getting later selections in return. They'll likely get a good hand for pick 4 and then maybe even splitting those picks even further back. So that's so they can get guys like Jed Walter, Ethan Reid, Jake Rogers through the draft. All could be top 10 picks. And they just want a whole bunch of late selections. So they've already got about 4,500 points worth of picks. They'll get even more of that when they split pick 4, potentially with the Dogs for selections like pick 10, pick 17, and a future first. And that'll have them really well set up. And then they could certainly move back into the draft order after selecting all 3 of those aforementioned guys.
Yep. Nice. Halfway through, how are we feeling?
Yeah, good.
Good?
Yeah, good.
All
Getting
right.
there.
Keep going.
Keep
GWS.
All right, so yeah, the Giants will lose Matt Flynn to West Coast. He's a free agent, so that'll be a pretty straightforward deal, and I'm not sure what kind of compensation they'll get there. With him leaving, that'll likely mean that Braden Pruce gets a new deal. Jason McCartney already kind of said that on Trade Radio this week, that it'll be one or the other, and Flynn's the one on the way out. Lockie Keefe's another one that's kind of in limbo at the moment, and they'll kind of wait to see what they can get. But with Chris Burgess going to Adelaide and GWS wanting to get Elliot Himmelberg, that move is likely to take place, and that'll likely mean with Himmelberg coming, it'll likely mean that Keefe might not get a new deal. Razio Fantasia was one guy who's been raised as a potential option for GWS, given he's just seeing where his future in football is at the moment. I think that was reported by Fox Footy. And then, as we mentioned, Himmelberg's the other one, so he'll come in as some forward depth option for them. So a lot of their key position stocks will probably undergo a shuffle, both back end, front end. Nick Haynes kind of an interesting one, given he's contracted for next year, has a lot of money, but it could be a kind of pick swap deal or salary dump deal. I think I've gone over here. But
yeah, definitely gone over.
That's all right. All right, next club.
Who we got? Hawks. Good luck with this one.
Yeah, okay. So look, they've missed out on guys like Ben Mackay, Sabah Radaglia, Liam Henry, which seemed like an early blow. And then they had trade requests from Tyler Brockman to get to West Coast, Jacob Kajitsky to get to Richmond. But things are picking up. So Mass D'Ambrosio supposedly wants to get over to Waverley, as does Mabior Chol from Gold Coast. So some good options there. It'd be interesting to see what they can do with their small forward stocks. Yes, they've got Luke Bruce for another year, and Dylan Moore kind of plays a bit of midfield. So that's going to be one area I think that's a concern. That's probably why they had that interest in Liam Henry. They've also, going to try and make a move for pick 1. That could be involved in Tyler Brockman moving. They've got pick 3, maybe their future first involved. So there's a bit that they could use. Probably don't have the strongest hand compared to other clubs that might be interested in pick 1, but there's certainly a chance. And then there's interest in Bailey Smith, but unsure if the Dogs are really going to be moving all that much unless a Godfather offer comes, and if Smith's really wanting to leave the kennel.
Yep. Nice. All right. D's?
So, yeah, Oliver, all signs point to him staying, I guess. Seems like that'll be the case. It's going to be really interesting to see how his next year plays out after this off-season. They'll lose Brodie Grundy to Sydney, James Jordan to Sydney. They'll get Shane McAdam, it sounds like, from Adelaide. Tom Fullerton from Brisbane potentially as well. So that's some forward options that they've certainly lacked this year, both medium-sized and tall. So Fullerton more of a ruck forward and McAdam that third size forward. They can kind of put a bit more selection pressure on someone like Bailey Fritsch. James Harms, he's looking at other clubs. Not really sure what kind of interest there is. There might be maybe a home for him at a club like Richmond, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot biting at the moment. And they're another club that could make a play for pick 1. I think that was where this Oliver story kind of grew from, is that they really want to get pick 1. And how they're going to do that is maybe trading some top talent to get to do so. So a busy club, Melbourne. But I think Oliver's staying.
Yep. Beauty. All right. North?
Yeah, another one of those busy clubs. So Todd Goldstein, as we know, wants to get to Essendon via free agency. So again, that'll be one of those more straightforward deals. 2 guys that they've got coming in, Zach Fisher and Dylan Stevens. So I really like those 2 as pickups for North. Some outside run, some good experience, plenty to offer, plenty of upside. So it's a good trade-off for them. It'll be interesting to see what they have to give up for those 2, though. I think Fisher's quite well rated at the Blues, just can't quite break into that senior side. And Dylan Stevens is a former top 5 pick, I think, at the Swans. So I don't think he'll be coming cheap. But North obviously have heaps of picks to kind of work their way through this trade period. Biggie Nguyen from Richmond's one that's been tied to the Roos. Bryn Teakle as well, Buku Kamas. So some height, some ruck option, or some forward depth is something that's certainly on their radar. Out of those 3, I'd probably like Bryn Teakle. Got delisted. Biggie Nguyen hasn't got a deal, so he's another one that they could get through delisted free agency. And Kamas is in the same boat.
Beauty. All right. The pair.
Yeah, Port, there are a lot of busy clubs, as mentioned. So Radaglia, BZT, Brendan Thatcher, that is, Jordan Sweet, Ivan Soldo, all potentially landing there. I don't think they get all 4. I think they'll probably prioritise the 2 defenders in Radaglia and Zerk Thatcher. But what that's going to cost them is going to be really interesting. So as we know, Xavier Dersma is one that's been raised as a potential trade option with Essendon to get Zerk Thatcher's deal over the line. Jordan Sweet won't cost them a lot. I think that's one that should be pretty straightforward, but they'll be trying to get this Radaglia and Zerk Thatcher deals done. Soldo, I don't see going to Port Adelaide. I think Richmond will be really keen to hold on to him, and he's contracted, so they've got a leg to stand on there. And if he does go to the Power, it probably means that Scott Lycett and Sam Hayes are probably on the way out. And someone like Orazio Fantasia said it sounded like he was going to sign a new 1-year deal, but maybe just looking for greater security elsewhere with GWS, one of those clubs that have been mentioned as a potential buyer.
Beauty. All right, Richmond.
So as we just mentioned, Ivan Soldo, probably likely to stay, I would have thought. I think the Tigers will like him as their backup ruck option. They don't really have much more support for Nankervis. Jacob Kajitsky's one that's probably heading to punt road. Going to try and be that supporting role for Tom Lynch, who's even looking at a delayed start to his preseason. So that's a bit of a concern. They need someone in that forward line. Look to try and replace Jack Rearwood, I guess, as that that second tall forward alongside Lynch. James Harms is one that I wouldn't mind them kind of looking at. I don't think he's going to cost a lot. He has experience, just as a bit more depth in their midfield. Obviously worked under Adam Uze during their time at Melbourne together, so that's one. And then Biggie Nguyen could be one that they lose. He's still unsigned, as is guys like Ryan Mansell and Hugo Ralph-Smith, but he's one that's had interest from North Melbourne. And again, if they lose Soldo after losing Rewalt, Biggie could be an important piece for them. Beauty.
We're getting through it. St Kilda.
All right, yeah. So Jade Gresham to Essendon looks likely, I guess. And then what that means for Dylan Shield, he could potentially be coming the other way. And then they could be getting a first round pick out of it as compensation in that to work through that Shield deal. So there's a lot to kind of play out in that one. It's not exactly straightforward, and it's going to be interesting to see what Essendon want to get out of it as much as what St Kilda want to get out of it. But it could be a kind of a player swap through free agency and then via trading, and then hopefully the Saints will be hoping to get a decent pick out of that, as well as taking on Shield's salary. Nick Caulfield wants to go to the Western Bulldogs, it sounds like, so another loss for them and another first round pick out the door. Paddy Dow, one that's potentially coming in, so that could be via delisted free agency or via trading, so they might not have to give up anything for him if they kind of just tread water a little bit. Liam Henry, one that's coming in, small forward, so that'll be interesting to see how much they have to pay up for him. And Brody McLaughlin's another one I think you should keep an eye on at the Saints.
Beautiful. All right, home stretch. Let's go,
geez,
Sydney.
Right. So James Jordan, Brodie Grundy, both trying to get to the Swans, it sounds like, from Melbourne. Two good pickups, hopefully won't cost them too much. Obviously, Jordan's a free agent, so that'll be nothing. And then Grundy's value certainly plummeted over the last 12 to 18 months. Dylan Stevens on the way out, though. I think that's a bit of a blow. Not a certified starting 22 player, but I think he was just a great player that was developing well and just had some good signs, particularly in the 2022 final series. And Joel Hamling's one that could make his way over from Fremantle, as they've been wanting a key defender all year, haven't quite been able to land guys like Tom Barrass or Ben Mackay. And Hamling, I think, is an astute kind of cheap option that could certainly press for a starting spot in that back line.
Easy. All right, West Coast.
So didn't quite get Dill Robertson from Brisbane, so he'll be staying at the Lions for another 2 years. And you'd think that, at the end of 2025, West Coast will be ramping up that interest again. Tyler Brockman wants to get over to the Eagles, so that one's kind of been ticked off. And he could be part of a trade for pick one with Hawthorn. The other one is Matt Flynn via free agency, so GWS Ruckman. Has some experience, kind of lost his starting spot to Kieran Briggs, who just had a breakout season. And Flynn will be certainly pressing for that first string role under Adam Simpson. What that means for Bailey Williams, whether he plays more forward or they just want to see both of them competing for the one spot, or they kind of share that ruck role. That'll be really interesting to see, but I think it's a kind of good cheap pickup for them. No harm.
Easy. And last but not least, the Doggies.
All right, so Nick Caulfield from St Kilda wanting to get over to the Kennel, so that'll be an interesting one to see how that pans out and just how much both clubs kind of value him. He's been he's been injured over the last 2 seasons, had the ACL at the start of last year and a lot of setbacks this year as well with calf issues. So I think he'll be really good if he can stay fit for them, kind of that medium-sized backman. Bryn Teagle's another one that's been kind of flagged as a potential depth ruck forward option to support Tim English after they lose Jordan Sweet to Port Adelaide. So that's kind of a 1-for-1, but it won't be in the same deal. They could pick up Teagle through delisted free agency. Buku Khamis' future is kind of up in the air. Could certainly get interest from clubs like Collingwood. But I think he probably stays. And then pick 4 is the other one they're kind of going for from the Suns. That'll be really good for them to get in early into the order, use that pick, and then use later picks to match a bid for Jordan Croft, who's a key forward and could be a first-round pick, father-son.
Bang on.
Good. There we go.
There you go. How do you feel?
I think I got all the names right. I was just looking and just kind of thinking off the top of my head. Thinking, I think I got everyone in there. And well, like I said, it was quick, fast pace. Hopefully that works out.
Yeah, there's a lot there. And I mean, I think halfway through the year we were debating whether it was going to be a frenzy or a fizzer this trade period.
It still could be.
Yeah, it always could be. But I don't know. There's some names there there's some big names there that I wasn't expecking to be there.
Well, there was the Clary uptick this week.
I think
some people were just getting bored and just thought, you know what, there's stuff like that every year, and obviously Horn Francis was kind of that mantelpiece last year when it came to trade news in what was a really busy off season with a lot of big names moving clubs, but a lot of that was built up over the year, like you said. Where this year probably hasn't been as much, brimming away a little bit. There are some big names like Brodie Grundy. I think is significant, just given what he's had to do over the last 18 months. But yeah, they don't get much bigger than Clary. But yeah.
Well, there you go. So that's every club. If you think we got it wrong, if you think we got it right, let us know in the comments. And thanks, Mitch.
Thank you. Thanks.